they think they're duping everybody. They're not fooling more than half of Canadians. What are you going to do?
What we can conclude about what he's already done for Canada and on the international stage and where things are headed in the future. And so now I'm going to take Carney's values book apart in two ways. The first thing I want to tell you is what he thinks Canadians' values are.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. So I did read Mark Carney's book, and it's terrifying to think that a sensible, educated person thinks that's the right path, unless they're corrupt. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that too heavy, but we've got our guy Jordan Peterson here, Dr. Jordan Peterson, who came on the scene in 2017 with Bill C-16 when we started to have to call everybody by proper pronouns. You should have one or the other pronoun, like whatever. I don't care about that. Just don't call me late for dinner. Jordan Peterson right here is going to break down Mark Carney for us. Like it's the summer, so they're obviously on vacation. Even the hard-working ones, like maybe Pierre Poilievre. Bet you he's campaigning his ass off. We're going to slip into Dr. Jordan Peterson. I'm going to watch along with you, but this guy, Mark Carney, I don't think so, bud. Like, everything about you is suspicious. Like, let's take a look.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Hello, everybody. As some of you may know, and some of you don't, Canada suddenly has a new prime minister. His name is Mark J. Carney, and he's the replacement for Justin Trudeau, running the Liberal Party in Canada. That means that we Canadians need to know who Mark Carney is, and to the degree that Canada has a role to play internationally, that everybody needs to know. So, if you want to know who Canada's new prime minister is, and you want to know who Mark J. Carney is, and whether or not you should support him or vote for him if you're Canadian, or what you should think of him if you're part of the international audience, then this is the podcast for you. Carney is a mystery to Canadians in large part, not least because he's been a political figure for a very short period of time. And the election that's being called is a snap election, so Canadians aren't going to have, and the rest of the world aren't going to have a lot of time to get to know him before the determination of his status as Prime Minister is going to be finalized. I want to make a case for Carney first, as powerfully as I can, so that we give the devil his due, so to speak. And I think the right way to do that is with a review of his resume. It's quite clear to me that Canadians are entranced with Carney, whose Liberal Party has risen dramatically in the polls in the last month. They're entranced with him for two reasons. And one is because Trump has been careening around like a bull in the china shop with regards to his comments about Canada, placing tariffs on Canada, describing us as not worthy of having our own country and fated, if we're lucky, to become the 51st state. This has produced a groundswell of pro-Canadian sentiment. In consequence, even among Liberals who haven't been noted for their patriotism over the last 10 years, this is a common occurrence in Canada. Historically, it's very frequently the case that in Canada, we learn to pull together because of a threat, real or supposed, emanating from the American elephant that occupies the place of primacy south of us. So Carney and the Liberals have got a boost because of Trump's rampaging around, but also because Carney is a new face and a new fresh face, and so hypothetically, and so people who are a little leery, let's say, of the Conservatives under Poilievre have every reason to hope that Carney is the right man for the time. Now, he's capitalized on that to some degree by positioning himself as an outsider who will bring fresh new ideas and a novel and innovative approach to the Canadian political situation, and we'll take that claim apart a little bit later. Suffice it to say that the combination of his novelty and the knockoff consequences of Trump's comments with regard to Canada have moved the Liberals over the last month from a place where they were essentially facing electoral extinction of a historically unprecedented sort to neck and neck, or arguably in the lead of Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. And so why have Canadians turned to Carney apart from Trump? Well, Carney has a remarkable resume. And if the choice is Carney or Pierre Poilievre, it would be easy for Canadians to assume that Carney has everything that Poilievre does and more. Poilievre's a career politician, and that means he's faced the electorate. It means he's done a lot of door-to-door knocking. It means he's listened to Canadians at the ground level and been appraised of their concerns, and Carney doesn't have that. But Poilievre is also a career politician. Now, Carney is a career bureaucrat, and he has a resume that on the face of it, you might be regarded as preferable in its depth to Poilievre's. So I want to familiarize you with his resume, and then I want to walk you through what it signifies, because we should assess not only what he's done and what he looks like on paper, but what that actually means practically and conceptually speaking, and with regards to its impact on Canada and the broader world. So we're going to start by walking through his resume. So currently, as we already pointed out, he's Prime Minister of Canada, and that's been the case since March 14th. Now, here's a couple of things to understand about that. The first is that he's Prime Minister and he holds no seat in the House of Commons, which means he hasn't faced any electorate. He does not have a mandate from the Canadian people. And about 130,000 Liberals voted for him. So he's basically become Prime Minister with no test of the validity of his personality or his political stance being presented to Canada by a tiny proportion of the Canadian population. It's about 0.5% of the Canadian electorate. And so that means it's actually incumbent on him to do exactly what he's doing, which is to call an election, but also not to be parading around the world, let's say, especially in places like Europe, acting as if he is Prime Minister with a mandate. Now, he's done a fair bit of that in the last couple of weeks, and we want to keep that in mind. And we also want to keep in mind the fact that the election is very likely to be of incredibly short duration, because there's a reason for that too. Okay, so currently as Prime Minister, that's obviously somewhat impressive. He got a bachelor's degree from Harvard in 1988 and developed an interest in economics at that point. Then he went to the University of Oxford. So these are major league educational institutions. And back in the late 80s and the early 90s, they were still highly credible institutions, I would say. So he was at Harvard in 1988. I was teaching there from 92 to 96. My experience at Harvard was stellar. I thought it was an absolutely remarkable institution. So again, I said I would give the devil his due. And to become a bachelor, to get a bachelor's from Harvard is a genuine accomplishment. It certainly indicates that you have a fair bit of raw cognitive power and some real conscientious discipline. And then he went to Oxford, which is another one of the world's premier universities. He got a master's degree in economics in 93 and a doctorate in 95. And then he has an honorary degree from the University of Manitoba, doctorate of laws. So educationally, that's very stellar. Now, with regards to his professional experience, he was governor of the Bank of Canada, and that's a major deal as well. And then, even more impressively, he was governor of the Bank of England from July 1st, 2013 to March 15th, 2020. Now, that's pretty impressive, because it's not typical for the Brits to hire someone who isn't one of their own, so to speak, although he does hold British and Irish passports, to lead an institution as august as the Bank of England. And so again, on first glance, it would be reasonable for Canadians to surmise that Mr. Carney has had his credentials vetted not only within Canada and with regards to these educational institutions, but by the relatively skeptical Brits who decided he was the man to run an operation as significant as the Bank of England. Goldman Sachs, he worked for Goldman Sachs, a huge financial organization from 1990 to 2003, where he was managing director of investment banking. He worked in London, Tokyo, New York, and Toronto offices. He worked in the Department of Finance in Canada from 2004 to 2008. He was chair and head of transition investing. Now that's getting a little more relevant to the point we're going to make later. He was chair and head of transition investing for Brookfield Asset Management from 2020 to 25. He just resigned upon entering the political sphere. He oversaw investments in renewable energy. And then he was United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance from 2020 to 2025 as well. He was appointed by Antonio Guterres, who's the Secretary General of the UN, to mobilize private finance for climate goals. He co-founded the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. Okay, so now we need to take that apart. Now, he's also written a book, Values, Building a Better World for All, which was published in 2021, and we're going to talk about that as well. So what do we say about Carney's experience and his resume? Well, the real question is, what is he aiming at? Right, so he's got a stellar educational background and this vast experience on the international side. But the question is, what has he concluded from that? And what has he done in consequence? And what is he planning to do in the future? Now, I read Carney's book, Values, very, very carefully. And so the reason I want to walk you through that is because that's his carefully thought through statement of principles and aims. And so it's useful to take a person at his word on the written side. And so I think we can derive from values what Carney's values are, what values he thinks Canadians do and should hold, what we can conclude about what he's already done for Canada and on the international stage, and where things are headed in the future. And so now I'm going to take Carney's values book apart in two ways. The first thing I want to tell you is what he thinks Canadians' values are.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, we'll wrap it up right there. Like Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, I'm not the crazy person here. Like, the politics are loony. Now we have Prime Minister Carney, who is only pushing this liberal agenda that's been forced on us since 2015. And I don't mean to say that I knew it was coming, but now I see what they're doing. Like, there's no doubt about it, guys. These politicians are all corrupt. You get into politics because you're corrupt. So there possibly is less levels of evil, but I'm not sure what those are. Like, I'll take my chances with the Conservatives now. Thank you very much. I'll roll those dice a couple of times. The Liberals are screwing us over and they're rubbing it in our faces. I'm fed up with it, like, just because they think they're duping everybody. They're not fooling more than half of Canadians. What are you going to do? Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, like, share, subscribe. Catch you in the next video. It is frustrating. Like, I wasn't paying attention until I started paying attention. And now that I'm paying attention, there's only one way to go. And it's the other way. Like, that Mark Carney is a bum. That's all there is. Jordan Peterson, thumbs up. We'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. We're out. It's hard to do this stuff. It just is.